We begin in Syria, where the UN says at least 50 people have lost their lives in airstrikes on a number of hospitals and schools. The death includes strikes in two towns, Marat al-Muman, south of Aleppo in Idlib province, and Azaz, near the Syrian border with Turkey. At least one of the hospitals was being supported by Doctors Without Borders, or Médecins Sans Frontières, which says they were being directly targeted. CCTV's Roy Rottenberg is joining me here and has the very latest. Roy, what's the latest?
Asiya, the UN Secretary General says that in total, we're talking about 5 hospital facilities and 2 schools. A spokesman for Secretary Ban said a number of the victims were children and that the attacks are, quote, a blatant violation of international law. Now, the head of the UN's children's agency, UNICEF, which was supporting 2 of the schools, says he was, quote, appalled. Now, one of the schools was reportedly struck 4 times, and many have quickly blamed forces loyal to Syrian President Bashar al-Assad and his Russian backers, saying they're targeting civilians. So far, there's been no response from either Damascus or Moscow about those strikes, but both have been actively cracking down on rebel-held areas near the attacks. The head of Doctors Without Borders, which was supporting one of the hospitals in Idlib, says a number of their facilities have been hit just this year alone.
It's clearly an attack against the medical mission. To be today a doctor or a nurse in the areas controlled by the opposition, it's equal to be a criminal. Unfortunately, if you are a doctor and you are working in a hospital, clearly you are under attack by the Syrian regime.
Now, the group says it will not be deterred, that it will maintain its presence in northern Syria despite the attacks, because Asiya, they say they are desperately needed there.
So, Roy, just last week, world powers in Munich agreed to cessation of hostilities in Syria, which are supposed to take effect in a couple of days. So you got to wonder, this cycle of violence, what is it going to do to that agreement?
And no doubt many are now questioning the will of some of these players to uphold that Munich agreement. The U.S. State Department on Monday said that the attacks, quote, fly in the face of unanimous calls to avoid strikes on civilians, those agreements made in Munich. Russia says its strikes are targeting militants and that it is making gains supported on the ground by Syrian forces. Now, we know that many of the wounded that you're seeing there fleeing across the border to Turkish hospitals are indeed Syrian rebel fighters. Ankara is very concerned that a power vacuum there could pave the way for Kurdish fighters to take over. Any grip of strength for them in Syria could prompt Turkey to act. They've already said they wouldn't allow that to happen. Turkey, of course, was part of the talks in Munich, committed to de-escalating the situation. The stakes, it appears, though, may be changing. And the UN Special Envoy for Syria, Staffan de Mistura, has arrived in Damascus. He arrived on Monday. He'll be speaking with Syrian officials, no doubt conveying Secretary Ban's sentiments, but also trying to ensure that the commitments made in Munich, Asiya, remain relevant.
We'll see what happens. Roy Rottenberg, thank you so much.